residents and small businesses. The classic model of CCA is electricity supply, but I think what we want to highlight here is that this opt-out approach can really be applied to more than electricity purchase and go beyond that to community renewables, like the way that it's happening currently in New York. So if we go to the next slide, I'll speak a little bit about this integrated model. Currently, New York is the only state where CCA municipalities can distribute community generation credits through an opt-out subscription. And this extends to things like community solar, most notably, but other forms of renewables as well. And these are generally local solar farms that get credits for the value they bring to the grid. So they get homeowners, renters, anyone who's CCA eligible to subscribe to these credits and have that as the mechanism for distribution. And CCAs can act as the distributors of these credits, simply giving away bill credits as straight discounts to any consumer in a municipality. So this integrated model eliminates the need for individual credit checks that would happen in a traditional opt-in community solar or community renewable method. It also is facilitated through a single bill in New York, so eliminating a second bill from a solar farm or developer, which is a hurdle to a lot of different participant groups. There's guaranteed electricity bill savings, and local solar farms and energy generation, even storage facilities, are supported in this model. And the other thing we can do through bulk subscription is prioritize low to moderate income consumers. So here are some of the highlights of really the integrated model that we want to put forward as key or core to this federal proposal. And connecting that with federal targets for community solar, we see that the US Department of Energy National Community Solar Partnership target recently announced is to enable community solar systems to power the equivalent of 5 million households by 2025 and create 1 billion in energy bill savings. Now, there's currently enough in the US to power 600,000 households, but achieving this new target would mean more than a 700% surge in solar over the next 4 years. So the unique ability to distribute credits at CCA really puts its potential at the center of federal policy. And the impact of the opt-out model we've described here. So you can see with opt-in, you have about 1 to 5% uptake or participation. With an opt-out model or CCA, you can get 80 to 90% in New York or even higher elsewhere, say California. So the potential here for really deploying at scale exists with CCA in an opt-out fashion. Not only do we need a technology surge, but we need a good way of distributing the benefits socially, and that's where we see CCA and this integrated model come into play as a key policy tool for the proposal. If you go to the next slide, I think that takes us to an introduction of our rationale for the program that we'd like to propose, the Clean Energy Infrastructure for Social Equity. And the way we've been contemplating this really starts with community-led grid improvements. And that's really the basis of, the social acceptance and community desire to bring about positive change for grid improvements, for community buy-in, and then to really allow CDG to be brought on and deployed at scale. And that's the second piece, and the technology being brought online. And then third is the use of CCA and CDG in tandem as a key policy tool to achieve Justice 40 goals. And for anyone who's unfamiliar, Justice 40 is a whole of government effort to ensure federal agencies work with other levels of government like states and local communities to deliver at least 40% of overall benefits from investment in climate and clean energy to disadvantaged communities. And this is exactly the link with CCA and the opt-out model. So with that, I'll hand over to Mike to speak about some of the newly available funds and the timeliness of this proposal in the current federal climate.
Thanks, Divya. What we're going to go through is, not just the beginnings of what's available, or what I'm going to go through, but also, how we're approaching what's available, what we're proposing, how we are engaging, and how folks might participate and join, and as well, what Lean might do as a project to comprehensively engage on behalf of membership. So that if you look at this slide, this is literally tip of the iceberg of what is to be available. And we have separated it by infrastructure, which is obviously passed, and Build Back Better, which is expected to be passed. But this is literally tip of the iceberg. And right now, at least with the infrastructure legislation, the agencies are currently writing rules. So now is the time to engage so that they understand how much we can accomplish with municipal opt-out authority and how deep the education can go for and with the grassroots. And literally with the strength and support of local government, and ultimately how little it'll cost using CCA authority to achieve ultimate objectives. So let's move to the next slide, thanks. So what we're doing is we're building on CCA's strength to create a holistic model. So adders and low interest financing will ensure that the private sector is fully engaged in the transition, but in a manner that serves communities. And CCAs have the capability to equitably distribute the enrichments outlined here and beyond through municipal authority. And these can be leveraged to create recurring value through, for instance, employment, grid and community infrastructure planning, community empowerment, and bureaucratic efficiencies. And you'll see each of those kind of categories up here. So we can go to the next slide as well. So these are our objectives in New York, specifically in New York. And this municipal authority allows this pilot to achieve the objectives more cheaply, candidly, than otherwise. And the industry should be at an advantage versus other submissions to competitive federal programs, just simply because of how inexpensively we can achieve some pretty profound objectives. And these numbers here are based on current CCA adoption in New York State. And it literally more than 150 municipalities are engaged with roughly 1.2 million LMI residents. And it's our intent to take these objectives in New York State and extend them to other states and other regions. So let's go to the next slide. I'm sorry. So a substantial amount of federal contribution is obviously coming down, and it's distributed by state governments. That's at least the way we envision this. It's not like the counterparties on this call are going to be distributing these dollars. A lot of these dollars will be applied for by state governments. The Office of Clean Energy demonstrations within the DOE is going to oversee and manage demonstration projects. But the central point is that a lot of the money will be distributed by state government, in this case, New York State government, and anyone else who joins the pilot, that the private sector will support. So folks like Joule and others who engage in the pilot will be supporting with services and software that'll help folks access these dollars. And then we will be creating networks of nonprofits and NGOs to basically do a lot of the governance and planning so that it truly is a grassroots movement. I think CCAs are positioned quite well to access this. At least that's our perspective. So this pilot is, because it's so effective in New York, because it's enabled by the existing regulatory structure. What we're hopeful is that folks around the country will want to work to actually apply to regulators to participate in the pilot. And so we would support any municipality who intends to submit to the state regulator to participate in the pilot. And so we can create some cool stuff, and it's our proposal that that we're very happy to support folks who want to kind of join on and demonstrate that it's not just New York that can do this, but CCA authority nationally can achieve these 5 million homes by 2025 for both solar and storage. In fact, other renewables as well, but primarily solar and storage. And there's the contact information for us. But I'd like to add something on the next slide. So our approach has been, the way we've approached the federal government, and I'll kind of go through this slide, just kind of reading from the slide. I hate to do that, but I'm going to do it. Sorry. So we've been looking at the different agencies, and we've been analyzing their requests for information over the last year. And we've been identifying their objectives and identifying individual specialization of each office and of the key personnel. We've also been dovetailing that with the agency's climate action plan so that we understand what rules will be consistent with that plan and dovetail well with that plan. We're basically looking at those objectives from the RFIs, and we're doing kind of a predictive with respect to who's in charge of what initiative in the legislation, or who's apt to be in charge, or who knows about the rules, or who is engaged in writing the rules. And we're now inviting conversations with the folks who are in the rulemaking stage. Now that's happening, the rulemaking stage is happening with the infrastructure, and not yet with Build Back Better, obviously, because it's not been passed. But right now we are engaging with, with conversation with folks who are writing the rules. And really what we're finding is that some folks in these agencies are like, hey, integrated approach, really interesting. All I care about is my bucket. I want to know what you can do for me and how you can do it. Other folks are really integrated in the synergies of that integrated approach. And so it'll be a more customized proposal from some, and it'll be a very focused funding opportunity announcement response for others. The other thing that we feel that Lean can do way more powerfully than we can do is represent the industry, and represent the industry and its capability as core. And so, so we think that, so what we're doing in this webinar is we intend to powerfully enhance the initiative by broadening leadership to the entire Lean community. And we believe, obviously, that CCA and municipal authority can be at the centerpiece of building up a scalable distributed energy resources infrastructure. And so we're proposing that Lean, with contributions from members and maybe new members and folks beyond the membership, can lead a similar multi-agency approach, and that the organization can analyze opportunities for members and support the agencies in that rule writing stage to literally achieve more for less. And so what I am promising on behalf of the organization, with authorization from Allison prior to the webinar, is that the results of that report, if the report is funded, we will be preparing a report. And the results of that report will be available to the Lean membership. And as we're getting into meetings with the federal agencies, I think we will be calling on Lean members and Lean contributors to participate in a lot of those conference calls, you know, just to learn more about what the agency's objectives are, as well as to craft the agency's approach to rule writing. With that, I'll shut up and open the floor up for questions. We can go to the last slide.
Hi, Mike. I don't see any questions coming up.
Shall we give it a moment, and then I have no problem. We don't need to riff beyond what it is that we've said.
Okay, we do have a raised hand. If the person raising their hand could just submit the question through the question and answer box, that would be great. Thank you.
Or is there a way to unmute, I guess? No?
Let me see.
I'll go to the chat too.
Oh, here's a question.
Q&A.
There is a question. What is the timing on this? Next steps from Lean?
So we're doing this now at Joule. I think that what we would do if it is funded, and what we would do is we know who we would hire or seek to hire, and we would orient and move immediately. With funding, I think that we could get going within a week. And I think it would be really powerful, you know, first of the year to be able to get going with a comprehensive. I don't think it's a heck of a lot of money to get it going. But then we would get going first of the year. We would begin to get feedback on the infrastructure package like immediately. And I think that we would position ourselves for Build Back Better within within a couple of weeks thereafter. I think the whole project would be 3 to 4 months, though I think that there probably would be really good funding opportunity announcement services kind of ongoing afterward, because the federal government will be issuing FOAs for the next year. And so to create that kind of a flow of what's a really valuable FOA that could be served by opt-out CCA authority could be powerful from my perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. We do have a question here. News is that Build Back Better is being tabled until 2022.
Well, remember, that's 2 weeks. and by the way, the Build Back Better, you know, we know that we're kind of waiting on basically Mansion and Cinema. They're really good stuff in the infrastructure package, really good stuff. Build Back Better is extreme. Infrastructure is a lot more powerful through the Department of Transportation. There's a lot of electrification initiative, and there's some on the distributed solar. But there's also a good deal in terms of statewide innovation, market innovation that's in the infrastructure bill. Build Back Better has a pot of about $320 billion, Divya, I think, you'll tell me if I'm right, that is tax benefits, investment tax credit.
I believe for Build Back Better, it was 555 billion to the climate change bucket, and 320 billion of that was in tax credits.
And those tax credits, by the way, will be, when and if Build Back Better is passed, it's interesting, the way they're structured, they'll actually be available to municipalities directly. You know, traditionally you had to find a tax equity off-taker, but it looks like the way it'll be structured, if it gets done, obviously, is a direct payment option for the tax credits. So the municipalities can actually just build solar on their own land, prospectively, or storage.
Thanks, Mike. Possibly right. Will CCAs be directly eligible for these federal programs, or mostly pass through from state governments?
Yeah, that's interesting. I believe that they will be directly eligible, certainly in California, where you have, where you have the power authority construct. There are certain programs that are only available to governments and governmental entities like public utility commissions. So there are some restrictions on some of the streams of money. So consider that some of it will be directly available, others of it will be administered through governments. And the other thing that we're proposing is that there are small dollops of funding that will support the building of expertise infrastructure. And we would expect that CCA administrators and CCAs themselves will be participating in that.
Okay, thanks. There was a question about, can the money be used for CCA startup if certain elements are included in their governance and operational plans?
How interesting. How interesting. Let's write it in.
Sounds good.
Right. The federal government just has to say yes, right?
Right.
And the CCA startup, because it's so darn leveraged, my gosh, if you're going to achieve XYZ in, in low income credit discount allocations due to startup, my gosh, why not?
Yep, agreed. All right, we have another question. Can you give more detail about specific funding we can use from the existing infrastructure bill? And he says also, this delay to 2022 very possibly means killing the bill.
Yeah. So in terms of killing the bill, I'm not really good at predicting. And I think you're right that moving into an election cycle puts it at risk. But I also have some faith that we can move specifically Manchin and Sinema. And I think that what we want to do as Lean is partner with other industry associations. I know the SEIA is engaged. I know that CCSA is engaged. I know that a lot of the environmental non-governmental organizations are engaged. And I think we'll best, basically, there are folks who are well positioned who are partnering. And I think that what we could do is offer our support as an industry to what's already ongoing. But you're right, we don't know. We have infrastructure. It's $1 trillion. It's $1 trillion near-term dollars. Rules are being written. And you're right, Build Back Better is, we're assuming that it's coming. But you're right, who knows? The the second piece of that, infrastructure, do you want to go back to some of the things that we've identified? So if we go back on the slide.
Yeah. Which one did you want?
Keep going and I'll tell you when to stop. Okay. So the storage demonstration pilot program, I think, is going to be a lot larger than that. It started with a $7 million fund, and now it's 355, and I think it's larger. There's a program called Energy Storage for Social Equity, which has identified a number of pilot communities, and I do expect that to expand. The state energy program, I think, and Divya will tell me that we don't have specifics on this yet, but I think there's actually $9.5 billion available for innovation in the infrastructure fund. And 2 billion of that 9.5 billion, I believe, is directed for low-income initiatives. The actual grid upgrades are roughly 65 billion. I'm told that there's 11 billion available for more localized grid upgrades in the infrastructure package itself. And that, and we see that utilities are looking at that like, let's upgrade old lines. And I think that what we're hoping to create or expecting to create is a real collaborative planning process between the local stakeholders, the developers of distributed energy resources, the utilities, and state leadership. And I think that if we really create a kind of planning for the future approach for that $11 billion, I think that we can do a heck of a lot better than pro rata for those who participate in the pilot. And then, of course, I won't necessarily go over details in the Build Back Better, though I probably can't resist. So the 320 billion in Build Back Better, which literally, cross our fingers, it's just so darned powerful. It allows for investment tax credits of up to 50% for solar and storage units that are contributing most of their credits for this community generation to lower income consumers. It also allows for interconnection to be investment tax credit. It's just a really powerful piece that's something better. It also has the direct payment to municipalities. It's better than anything I've seen in a long time. It's really powerful. It's got some limitations. You have to apply for it. The IRS will be writing rules on it, which is why, yeah. Okay, I'll shut up now, and and there'll be more nuggets forthcoming. And the idea would be that this research project for and with Lean will offer membership an enhanced look at what these nuggets are, what the rules can be, crafting the rules, and also reporting on the rules as they're written.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I think you've answered this already, but maybe just step back and reiterate who the ideal partners are for the pilot effort.
Municipalities, because if you've got a CCA or you're planning a CCA, you're in the midst of preparing a pilot for a CCA, there's going to be a heck of a lot of support dollars available. And even beyond support dollars, if the BBB passes, like there's the $320 billion of investment tax credits, any state that really wants to scale up community solar and community storage, they are perfectly positioned if they allow for opt-out allocation of the credits. It'll allow them to get a heck of a lot more resources built in that state near term. So if you're a municipality, we will work with you to partner with your regulator. I mean, we watched it in ARA, in the Recovery Act. Within like, I don't know, 2 months, 27 states had passed property assessed clean energy laws because it was accessing what they felt was the future. So we will work with municipalities or regulators, statewide regulators, either one, but really municipalities. You're where the real clout and power lies in this. We would work with you to submit to the state agency to say, be prepared for what is coming, folks. And so we are proposing this pilot, and we'd like you to conditionally on XYZ coming, discuss writing regulations that enables the state to take best advantage, particularly of as of right funding. So that the investment tax credit, it's an as of right funding, right? Anybody who qualifies is going to be able to get the ITC. Well, why not write the state rules to enable the economic development in your state, to enable the construction of the distributed energy resources, of the solar? Okay, I'll shut up now. Communities, municipalities.
Great, thanks, Mike. I don't see any other questions. Maybe we should wrap this up.
Cool.
Okay, all right.
So if people would like to participate in the pilot, you can either contact Allison. I think that you could contact, probably best to contact you, right? I know we had Claire up there, but we can contact you. As I think best to contact you.
Yep, that's fine. They can contact me. We'd be happy.
and we are hopeful that some of the folks on this webinar, particularly those who are well heeled, are ready to take a role in financing the next step, but not the municipalities. We do not expect that from the municipalities, but folks that are heeled, who are attending the webinar, are kind of ready to finance this next step for this report with and engagement with the federal government.
That's right. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Divya. We're really excited about this program and working with you, and hopefully working with a bunch of folks on the call as well.
One more question in the Q&A.
Oh, is there? All right. Can you see it?
I will try.
All right, I'll do it. Please clarify amount of funds needed, and is Joule a 501c3 nonprofit?
We are not a 501c3. We are not going to be taking on much of this funding, if any of it. It is we are building a collaborative process, and we are hopeful that we will be building it with the state of New York and beyond. The funds would be distributed through the states, and then there would be some small dollops of funding that would be going to various nonprofits to be part of the collective, the collaborative, the decision-making collaborative. It's our intent. We think that we can effectively deploy roughly $3 billion of investment in New York State, and that'll be private investment. It would be sparked by roughly $500 million of federal adders. We would also expect to leverage that with roughly $500 million of low interest capital from the federal government, which would be off balance sheet money. And then on the grant side, we're not talking, the individual grant for the nonprofits participating, we're talking in the, in the double digits millions for, really enabling and, and software and who's eligible for the low interest capital? Have they participated in the stakeholder process to develop the distribution system in a manner that it speaks directly to community needs? That kind of nonprofit organization engagement. Now, maybe I've spoken Greek. I don't know.
I think also they might be meaning, as far as the funds needed for this project that we're talking about, the pilot, to participate in the pilot.
Oh, we aren't going to take any of those. Those are going directly to lean. And Allison, you might, you have a target. Tell us what it is.
Yes, we have a target of $40,000.
Cool.
Yes.
I should have taken that as a quote unquote buy signal.
All right, we do have another question here. Do we know where, how to direct municipal legislators and agencies and state to the application process for infrastructure funds?
That is what we're hopeful of creating here. So we will, as we're submitting the pilot, as Joule is submitting the pilot, and it won't be Joule, it'll be, I'm hopeful it'll be the state of New York. In essence, that pilot would be submitted by the state of New York, I am hopeful, by one of the agencies of the state of New York. And then the individual municipalities of other states or the central regulator from the other states would be submitting for their portion of the pilot. So it would be a collective, say 5, 6, 7 state consortium that would be submitting for the funds. Now, beyond that, it's our expectation that once we complete this research piece, that the lean report will then be available to municipal legislators, municipal agencies, to state legislators, to states, and that we'll be issuing regular kind of notifications of a funding opportunity announcement, or we will invite folks to conference calls with individual state agencies, but we also will be releasing information on funding opportunity announcements and who might be eligible for them, that sort of thing.
All right, thanks. Let's see. Yeah, so just wanted to reiterate and thank you for the reminder. Yes, Lean is a 501c3 nonprofit.
Yeah, the money's not going to us.
Yeah.
We're just reporting on what we're currently doing to kind of serve our own business. I mean, my gosh, yes.
Yes.
But what we are suggesting that it could be even more powerful done by Lean to serve everybody's business objectives. It's not all about business. We're doing it for our business and for larger objectives. But we would expect that a process with Lean would be above and beyond what it is that we're doing.
Yep, that's correct. We do have a comment here that I'll read. Hello, great conversation. Anyone working on FERC transmission siting, their new office for public participation on the long distance power lines that caused the Silverado fire last year? I'm in Long Beach and grew up across the street from one point of origin for those HPLD transmission lines. Thanks.
Let's check Divia to see if FERC is recipient of any of these dollars. I doubt it's going to be substantial, but if they're a recipient of these dollars, and particularly if a stakeholder process, we were thinking about a stakeholder process in the distribution loop, but stakeholder process in the transmission lines. Let's just find out what they have and whether they're engaged here. We will.
That sounds good. And I think in some of we've found specific transmission facilitation programs in the infrastructure bill as well. also on the competitive grant side, but I think there could be more to flesh out there. So happy to do that as well.
And I want to speak to the tone, not the tone, but the tenor of that comment, which is that in everything that's cited, there's environmental support and there's environmental resistance. You know, it's proper, it's appropriate, right? So what we're looking for in the stakeholder kind of process is, my gosh, when we're upgrading a distribution line, in this case, a distribution line, but in other cases could be a transmission line, we recognize that we need to upgrade the grid to be able to handle, you know, environmentally clean distributed energy resources. We got to do that. But why shouldn't we be engaging objections from the get-go in that process? So we're engaging both objections and objectives in the same room, so that the entire process, and municipalities, because after all, that's who we are, right? As CCAs, we're municipalities, and why shouldn't we be engaging those, you know, those multiple constituencies from the get-go to achieve what we collectively want to achieve with consideration?
Great, thanks, Mike. Just checking to see if we have any other questions. I think we're good.
Do you know how soon it will be posted? Okay, I'm not sure I can answer that.
Yeah, I'll have it up on Lean's news and event page this afternoon. Yes.
Oh, you mean the presentation?
Yes.
Totally cool.
Great. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else, Mike or Divya?
Nope, going once.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you. Special thanks to Mike and Divya for your presentation. We look forward to your wisdom and working with you on this pilot project. And again, my information is on the screen. Would love to reach out to me if you're interested, want more information, interested in helping to fund this project. And with that, I will say good afternoon and happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.